Hey, welcome to
Hello.
Conversations in Care with Chris and Carol Green. Really glad that you joined in with us today.
Yeah.
And Conversations in Care is something that we started as care community coaches as a different way of bringing life coaching into diverse and underserved communities. And out of that has come a real need to go a little bit deeper, start having conversations and some of the challenges that many people are facing today. And just to tell you a little bit about us, because yes, this is a new thing for us, in stepping into live streaming in this way. But our topic today is going to be growing up PK. And that doesn't mean being a perfect kid. And we felt like the one of the best ways to get into that type of conversation, because for us, care is all about compassionate awareness with respect and empathy. And what better way to hear what it's like to grow up as a preacher's kid? For those of you that wonder what's PK, it means being a preacher's kid, or a pastor's kid,
A leadership's kid.
or a leadership's kid, growing up in church and ministry and the challenges that they face. And you say, well, why would we talk about that? Well, we talk about that because we're living in a world right now where a lot of things are being redefined
Yeah.
about church and ministry. And we're also going through an unraveling, is the word that's being used in many sectors of society. It's a pretty powerful word,
Very appropriate.
and a very appropriate word, unraveling, meaning a lot of systems of thought, systems of operation, systems in religion, education, just everywhere. They're literally unraveling because of things like COVID-19, as well as the social unrest that we're facing,
The political
the
upheaval.
political upheaval, yeah, all of it. And so some things are being redefined. We're taking new approaches to reach people. And some of the people that we are observing going through this change are the next generation of, quote, church kids. We want to give them an opportunity to talk about some of the things that they have gone through. And I can really see us moving into a conversation about some of the things that they can suggest that we could do
Yes,
differently
definitely.
moving
Yes.
forward. And so, just to tell you a little bit about us, Chris and Carol Green, we have been in this a long time. I don't want to say how many years, but we've been doing this a long time.
We're experienced.
Thank you. That's a great word. Give us that word. But we're authors, we're educators, we're certified professional coaches, we're leadership consultants, songwriters, poets. We've been ordained as ministers. We're involved in marriage and family advising. We've done conflict resolution, mediation. But in our local community where we're serving, as I mentioned, we're care ready responders, care ready coaches. And we're also founders of a ministry called Fruitful Life Network. And within that ministry, we have three areas in which we reach out to people. We have fruitful living, which is what we call our life impacting initiatives. We also have fruitful learning, which includes an online academy as well as an alliance of home fellowships and ministries. And we have what we refer to as our fruitful legacy, which is a digital archive that's comprised of 16 years of audios and videos and books and music that we've written. And last but not least, we are vice chancellors of administrative leadership and professors of searcher education at United Graduate College Seminary International. And so, yeah, that's a lot. That's a mouthful. But with all of that experience and all those things, the greatest titles for us is we're a husband and wife, and we're a mom and a dad.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be a real family, personal conversation for us today, as we're going to talk with, and we're going to talk about preachers' kids and pastors' kids, then what better way than to do it is to start off with your own family.
Hello.
And I want to do something to introduce our guest today. I want to go back. I want to go back about 27 years, 1993, and show you this 1 minute clip of the world that we come from. And so here we go.
Zion, glorious sing, glorious sing. Come on, victorious sing. Sing, come on, let's dance. Sing and dance to the Lord. Yes, Zion, glorious sing. Sing, Lord, we dance before you, God. Sing and dance before the Lord. Touch the head, lift him up. Say, lift him up. I said, lift him up. Yeah.
I know, you did it.
We claim St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
Say we claim St. Louis. Say we claim St. Louis. Oh, yeah.
I know, you did it.
We claim urban America. Gonna claim urban America.
Yeah, 27 years ago when we were pastoring in St. Louis, Missouri with my older brother and his wife, Carol and I, and that ministry exploded in that community. I mean, it absolutely exploded. We're talking church services packed out, 700 member church that had 1,000 people on average attending every week. And in that mix is the world in which these young people grew up. And so we're going to bring to you, hey, everybody, this is starting just go right around going clockwise. We got Erica Green, who is our niece. Her dad is Jonathan Green, who was worship leader, worship oversight pastor of Metro Christian Worship Center back during those years. And then continuing on around in the lower right-hand corner is our middle son, Jonathan Green. Hey, Johnny. What's up, John? And then right underneath that is our daughter-in-law, and she's married to Jonathan's twin brother. This is Michelle coming in from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Hey, Michelle.
Yay!
And so we just want to welcome all of you to this awesome conversation that we're going to have about what it was like for you guys growing up in pastors' homes or leadership's home, because it's a different view, absolutely a different way of growing up. There are things that I just showed that video clip. First, I want to ask Erica and John. So what came to your mind as you watched that 1 minute clip?
Yo, I was like, I remember that song because, like, I don't know, like when you, I don't know, when it's been so long, you haven't heard a song or anything like that in a while, but like it just kind of brings back memories, I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I know those people.
So how'd that hit you, John?
I'm not gonna lie. I remember that particular night.
Wow.
I remember being on the side. We were on the left side, and we were jumping and dancing. I remember that night, 100%.
Oh man,
Wow.
and that was kind of regular, and so it's funny when you see that. I'm sure it's got to be interesting and really funny when you see that kind of thing. That's what most people know about ministry. They know about the upfront stuff. They know about the things that nobody else sees. That no one else recognizes. Knows that behind all that jumping and dancing, there can be a lot of drama going on behind all of that. And so I want to give you guys an opportunity to address some of that, some of the things that you saw. So first of all, just want to give you an opportunity just to kind of go around, starting with Michelle. Just tell us a little bit about your upbringing in ministry, your parents, your siblings, and so go ahead, Michelle.
Okay. So I grew up in a family where pretty much everyone was in ministry. So my grandparents were pastors, bishop, like overseers of the organization that I grew up going to church in, and then eventually became missionaries over in Ukraine. My parents pastored for 6 years, and then they, after that, they were My dad might still be on the board. I'm not actually sure about that. But they like doing pretty much everything, like worship leaders, Sunday school teachers, soundboard, like treasury, like all the things. So while in the middle of raising us.
Wow.
Yeah. So me and my sister grew up kind of like a mishmash of a bunch of different ministry kid positions, I guess. PK to, just general leadership. Yeah. So yeah, that's our experience.
What do you recall, Erica, growing up in that environment in St. Louis, Missouri, at that big church there?
Man, like I just remember just like running around the church all the time, like being there. Because like you said, my dad was over the music, like he led worship, and then he was also like the accountant there. So like I was always there, like at church. So I remember just, being, in the back offices, which we'll get to, be in the back offices and hanging out there, just running around the church while my dad was having rehearsal, hearing the music and everything like that. So yeah, it was like, especially for like a little girl, like it was a big, huge, like palace kind of thing with music, always loud, like I always equate my ability to fall asleep in any kind of environment to that, to be able to fall asleep in loud environments. So yeah, like just running around the church, with the music and the preaching and I don't know, just hanging out.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Being able to sleep and no matter what the noise is.
On a hard church bench, you can sleep anywhere.
Yo, that is real. That is real.
That's a real thing. Pastor Speed. So what do you recall, John? You said you remember that particular night. You guys had a different perspective, but you guys were involved a lot with the media.
Yeah. Man, I remember the particular. I know me and Dad talk about it a lot, about the times that you would, especially like being pulled back into the booth and getting to play around with the cameras and everything like that. I just remember, for the most part, like Erica said, like being there every service, every event. Literally, it was our life was literally school and church. Like that,
Man,
there was nothing else. It was school and church. But church was, I mean, it was fun because especially like with all of the cousins that we had, some of the friends that we had at church, like it was blast. I can honestly say like I had a blast.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, being able to sleep during anything, like being like having worship going on, having praise and worship going on, shouting going on, and like being prayed on while you're asleep, because that happens. You wake up in the middle and you're being prayed for, and I'm just like, all right, it's just another day at church, and you just fall back asleep. That's it. Because I was a kid. I didn't know what that was. I was just like, all right, I'm being prayed for again. All right, I'm going back to sleep.
You actually bringing up one of our first questions for you guys, and that is, so what are some of the perks or the benefits of being children of pastors or leaders in your church? What do you feel like are some of the perks that you guys had?
I think
I'll let the ladies go first.
Huh? Oh, did you say that, Michelle?
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle. Go.
I know.
Being able to go anywhere you want in the building and like having kind of that backstage pass to just walk around, explore stuff, like because churches always seem to have these random, like, I don't want to call them tunnels, but like narrow passages that you can like explore.
That's true.
or like playing in the baptism tank, like, you know, just like random stuff like that. But like, you know, other kids,
Oh my.
Wow.
when it was in record, like when it was in.
What would you say for you, Erica? What were some of the perks or benefits that you had growing up in?
Kind of like Michelle said, like you got like a quite literal and figurative like backstage access to the church, you know what I mean? So like all the cool like secret passageways, you know, like there, for example, like there's a way like in the minister's lounge, there's like that door. If you go down there, it leads you to the fellowship hall. Like cool stuff,
Yeah.
just cool stuff. And like, you know, yeah, cool stuff. And I don't know, just having that backstage access, you know, having snacks. You always get the snacks. That's always fun.
Always snacks.
Yes, getting first dibs on snacks. That's always fun. They always had juice in the minister's lounge. The Welch's, the good kind. So just snacks and that poor kid, you know, like that's really all you could want. You get to run around and, you know, drink juice and stuff. Like there's nothing better.
I remember in one of our conversations we talked about. I want Johnny to address this. What would happen when we had guest speakers?
Yo, I was just about to say, like, bro, like you legitimately get to go out to eat with the guest speaker, and it's not like our particular ministry. We would take them to nice restaurants. I'm talking about restaurants you don't even know how to say the name. And it's just like you get the chance to go. Like you're the past kid. I mean, you gonna have to eat at some point. And we got guests in town. You have to show the guests around, treat them good, and everything. And our ministry did. I know for a fact, like we definitely did. But like being able to go. And I'm not talking about like we go there and we have to order chicken nuggets. Like we literally get to order like off the me. It was like I get to order off the adult menu. Like that's how good it was.
That was a flex right there. What flex?
Yeah,
that's funny. I think about the adult menu because that was a big deal about tell the kids you can only order off the kids menu.
Right.
Yeah, at these restaurants there wasn't kid menu. There was the menu. That was it.
Then I'll go right into our next question. So what pressure did you guys get from maybe church members for being a PK? I'll start with Michelle. What did you feel were some of the pressures that you got from other church members? I lost your mic. Unmute your mic.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
All right, are we good?
There we go.
Okay. Okay, I thought about this one last night, and I got a good answer for this one. I think the biggest pressure I felt as a PK or minister's kid was the pressure to use, I'm going to put this in quotes, use the gifts that God gave me.
Oh, wow.
So any skills that I had that were beneficial for church, whether it be singing, any form of music really, public speaking, anything like that, pressure to use that and volunteer in the church with it.
Wow.
Whether I was called to that ministry or not. Most recently, and this happened like in the last 3 months, I was actually asked by a member of the church I grew up in if I would be one of the youth ministers for this church. I have not attended this church in over a decade. I am a member of a completely different church with a completely different organization. But yet they still asked me because it's like, well, you're young, you're saved, and I know you have the skills. And it's like, but I'm not called to be a youth minister. If I was, I would be volunteering in my own church. Like, so anyway, I would say that was probably the biggest like pressure I felt.
Yeah.
That's really something that you would say that because it never occurred to me that long after you are an adult, that PKs still
and not even attending that same
Not as,
church.
but PK can still be
Called
called
upon.
upon and still assume that, you know,
And my
you
parents don't even attend there. That's what's really wild. Like my parents don't even attend there, aren't in leadership there anymore, and it still carries on.
That's amazing.
So I'll go to Erica. So what pressure did you get from church members being a PK?
I think it was like just the small stuff for me. Like I don't think anyone outwardly like said anything. Like nobody ever did that. Like nobody ever did anything like that Michelle went through. But I think it's the small stuff like, oh, you're gonna be just like your dad, or because like I said, like my dad was over like the ministry, like the music and all that stuff. So oh, you're gonna be just like your dad. You're gonna get up there and sing. Mind you, I can't sing at all, so I don't, I don't know about that. But just like the small stuff, and I feel like, in the moment it doesn't really hold a lot of weight, but I feel like you just unconsciously internalize that. So like when you're 7, like it doesn't really hold anything, but when you're 17 and now you're all mad because you feel like you gotta go on a mission trip when you don't want to, you know what I mean? Like things like that. So I feel like just the small little stuff, which by the way, I don't think anybody did it maliciously. Like I don't think anybody meant to put pressure or anything like that. I think they think they're being cute, and they think it's just like, oh, you're gonna be just like but I think you kind of just unconsciously internalize that, and you carry that with you until one day you wake up mad and you wake up feeling like you have to do something when no, nobody ever told me I had to. Like nobody in my family, like you guys never pressured us, so yeah. So yeah, just the small stuff for me.
That's amazing to us. So what I hear you saying is sometimes it could be an accumulative effect. Just a lot of little things that just kind of adds up to this expectation overall. Because each person in the church doesn't realize they're not the only one talking to you.
Right. They think they're being encouraging, but
You're
they're
one of many.
Yeah, you're one of many people that have all said the same thing to me or similar things to me. And like in your case, and you're like, I don't sing, I don't lead worship. And all these people keep telling me that I'm going to be just like my dad. And it's like, no, I don't do that. I hear you. John, what do you think? What do you get from church members?
Man, I would say, it was definitely like it was here and there, but especially like way you were, Dad. Like, oh, you're gonna be just like my dad. I'm just like, dude, my dad does so many things, and he's after the church for so goddamn long. Like, they're like especially as kids, like I could definitely say like my dad. His work ethic was on point, but I'm sitting there like, do I have to do all of that to just like,
I don't want this life.
Like I can honestly say like I do have the work ethic of my dad, because when I'm at work, like I zone out and that's what I'm doing. But as far as like all the stuff that he does, like he did at once, this man basically had like 16 jobs at the church. I ain't even lying. He had like 16 jobs. He literally had his hand in everything, and I wasn't trying to be about that life. I'm not trying to have 16 jobs, work 140 hours a week, and like, nah, this is not.
That's real.
I appreciate it. Like, oh, you're just gonna be just like your dad and different things like that. Like, thanks for the I believe that you're trying to encourage me. I believe you're trying to be like, but in my eyes, like you're looking from the outside in, and I'm just like, you don't know all this stuff this man goes through. that's not encouraging to like a 12-year-old who's actually able to see all the stuff that his dad does. Like, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
On the flip side, I'd like to ask you guys, so how did your church friends or your peers respond or connect with you? I'll start with Michelle. Go ahead.
Well, so the first I would say 10 to 12 years of my life, I didn't have church friends because there was no other kids other than me and my cousins. So we were all in it together. Then when we finally did get other kids in our church, they were also in leadership. So we connected just on, I guess, the fact that we were the empathy that we're both going through the same things. But I mean, it was just like any other friendship we had. There wasn't anything unique about our connection, I would say. It was just we're all friends, and that's the way it is. And I mean, I guess with church we didn't really have a choice either because there were kids. So. But even now, I'm still friends with some of them. So I guess they've forged lifelong friendships. But anyway.
How did go up to John? So John, how did you and your church friends or your peers respond and connect with you?
Uh, for a good bit of time, it was like Michelle said, it was the friends who were in leadership that, I mean, for me, that those were the ones that I could really connect to because we're all there at the church for hours on end. I can't say too many friends outside of leadership that I still have today. I mean, it was hard. It was hard to even try to connect with. I mean, there were, especially as a kid, there were hundreds of kids in children's church, but the one all we had really were my cousins and a few of the friends that were in leadership. That was it. It was hard any other way we tried. I can really say that I tried to have friends outside of the leadership circle, but it just couldn't form a bond like that.
Yeah. Wow.
What was your experience with that, Erica?
On the flip side, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I had a lot of friends whose parents were leaders. I think a lot of my friends were their parents were in the choir. So I'm here Thursday night because my dad's gotta be here. You're here Thursday night because your parents here. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of my friends were their parents in the choir or things like that. But yeah, kind of what they said. We're both here 3-4 times a week at least. We're both in children's church. We're both in the children's choir. We both have dance class on this. You know what I mean? So I think it was that we were all here at the same time. But I don't know. As far as I don't know if you're asking this, but as far as if they saw us differently because we were agreeing, I don't think so. I didn't get that vibe from my friends. At least I don't think so. So I don't think they saw me differently. Oh, you're green, so oh, you're I don't think it was like that. I don't think so anyway.
Okay.
Excellent.
Very good.
We heard you guys use this word, church groupies. And so I'd like for you to explain to people, what do you mean by a church groupie? And I'll start with Erica and go down to Johnny and then Michelle.
Okay, so I call them church groupies because I think, well, first of all, I think that when people think of groupies, they think of athletes or entertainers, musicians, rappers, anything like that. But pastors have groupies as well. It doesn't have to be sexual. It doesn't have to be you want to be in a relationship or anything like that. It's just people that want to be around you and people that want other people to know that they're around you and they hang out with you and all that stuff. So it's people who are just always there. They're just always around. They're at every family function, every after church dinner. And it's okay at some times because I feel as preachers' kids, we're very used to sharing our parents and our family. So to some extent we understand, But it's like, do you have to be at every single family function? Do you have to be at every single after church dinner? And you're real, and I say this term a lot, but you're real federal, because how do you know that we are at this restaurant? Like, how do you know that we're at the Applebee's on South Kings Highway at 1 o'clock? How do you know? Who told you? So I don't know. And of course, not saying no names, but we definitely in the Green family have some groupies. You know what I'm saying? Like, people who just always be there, people who are always around, and people who really don't even care about us. Like, you don't care about me. Like, you just want to be known that you hang out with the Greens. You know?
Right.
So
yeah. Oh my goodness.
That's a real deal.
And I love that expression
I love
too.
that. It's a real federal.
Real,
real federal.
Explain federal. What's real federal?
No, it's more like a slang term I use, like federal. Like, you are the feds. Like, how do you know? Like, you're the feds. You just know everything. How do you know where I am? Like, how do you know? It's federal.
Right.
The feds.
So
the feds.
there were times that you felt like you were being stalked.
Sometimes, because I just want to hang out, like, with my family. I want to hang out with my aunts and uncles, you know. I want to hang out with my cousins. And I feel like there were times where, like, we needed moments with each other, you know, to handle family business or whatnot. But we can't do that with you here. Like, come on. Read the room. Read the room. Just, I don't know. Yeah. So, sometimes.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John. What do you mean? What do you mean by church groupie?
Oh yeah, because definitely like there was always like those certain group of like certain people that would just come. They just come over. You ain't invited. You just come over. The Green family, we were pretty nice about it. If I had to be honest, we were as nice as we could be. I'll put it that way.
Some of us, not all of us.
Some of us, not all of us. I'm one of those people that probably said something. I probably said a snide remark here or there. But we definitely. We had people like Erica said. It's just like they would always come around, especially like during holidays is always a big thing for like people just to and we would never. I do know like every time we would set like, okay, for Thanksgiving we're going to let's say we're going to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and somehow everybody would find out that we're having Thanksgiving over there, and I'm just like, wait a minute. Oh, all we told was family. How'd you get over here? Right. How'd you know we would be at this house? Like, who told you?
Who told you?
And aren't you supposed to be spending Thanksgiving with your family? Like, but nonetheless, I know as kids we probably said some stuff. I know, Dad, you told us that we definitely said some stuff, especially as kids. We were kids, so we didn't know to be polite at that point.
We do want to say that they just didn't know that sometimes we had actually invited people who maybe didn't have anywhere to go for Thanksgiving. But from a kid standpoint, we like, I know you guys were like, who are you?
What are you? Why you ain't?
Because I have to share these with my family every day. Can I get like 2 or 3 days?
Right, like I legitimately, and that to me, it was hard to share my parents from time to time. It was hard to share my parents. Especially like with the relationship that I have with them now, especially like the relationship I have with my brothers and my parents, I wouldn't trade for the world. And especially at that particular time in my life, when I got time with my parents, it was very, very precious to me. I didn't know to put it in that way or even have the words to put it that way as a kid, but it was very precious to me as a kid.
And what many people didn't know, one of the adjustments that we would try to make is that, for instance, for holidays, we would try to have family time ourselves, with just us and our sons,
Yes.
before we would go to anybody else's house, because we just automatically would know that there are going to be other people there besides family. And so, but we just know that the drawback for them was that when we go to another cousin's house, they're thinking no one's going to be there except our cousins.
Right.
And then these other people would be there, and then they're like, oh, okay, now we got to put on church space again, and
Well,
be,
there are just things that we cannot
we
say
can't talk
now
about.
because
I can't be myself.
yes.
Yeah. So I totally get that you're talking about church groupies and what is meant by that. Michelle gave an incredible definition of what it means to be a church groupie, and Michelle, you gotta share that with us. That's, I mean, it was just a fantastic definition. It's one of the best definitions that you'll ever hear about what it means to actually be a church groupie.
Yes.
Is she
There you
froze?
go.
There we go.
It keeps kicking me out.
Oh, it keeps keeping you out of there.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of technical trouble today here on our call, but that's okay. We're pushing through it anyway.
Oh yes.
But so Michelle, share
Right.
with everybody that your definition of a church groupie.
All right. So my definition of a church groupie is somebody who likes you for your last name, but not your first. So
I love
what
that.
that means
I love it. It's true.
for those,
Well,
so you like me because of who I'm related to, which is
Yeah.
my last name, but you have no interest in who I am as a person,
Yeah.
who I am as a person apart from my family.
Yes.
So like I've had experiences where people very definitively treat me differently when I'm around my family than when I am away from my family. They
Yeah.
don't have time for me when I'm around my siblings or my parents or my grandparents or whoever. So,
Yes. Yes.
Ooh,
Very good definition.
that's one of those things that I don't think that even people realize. They may not even realize that they're doing that. That they are I don't want to just call them out and say you're being fake, because from our perspective, we've seen it like even in church services where as the service begins and they're singing songs, there are people who are just kind of just standing and watching. But as soon as the pastor walks out, then suddenly they lift their hands and they start singing. And they don't realize that they do the same thing sometimes even with the pastor's kids. You ignore them, you have nothing to say, but as soon as the pastor walks out, then suddenly you're friendly with their kids. And what I'm hearing you guys saying is that you saw that. Even though you were young, you actually saw that.
Yes.
When I want to continue this conversation. Now we're going to turn the table. So I want to start talking about how God started really just tugging at you guys' hearts and speaking to you and the things that you've learned and things that you can share with other PKs or leadership. I won't just say kids because a lot of them are grown now. They're adults. So there are people who are our age who are pastors' kids, and they are still deeply wounded and bitter from things that they experienced. And so we're going to pause for a break here. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions on the flip side of all of this. So everybody that's watching, hang on, we'll be back with more.
The world is broken. And people are hurting. They're carrying years of past regrets, failures, and pain. They're lost in a fog of lies. disillusioned by what the world says is happiness. They've fallen into the trap of sin, desperate to become the good person they want to be, but powerless to change. Burdened, angry, and helpless. But when we, the church, the hands of Jesus, reach out to the heavy-hearted, when we, the feet of Jesus, run to the fallen, when we remove our insecurities and let the light of Christ shine bright in the darkness, God moves. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and love. And when we truly believe this, freedom is found. Minds are renewed and hearts are healed. God moves when we step out in faith, when we let go of our time, our talents, and our treasure. God moves when we, the church, go all in.
All right. Good to be back. This has been just an awesome conversation that we've been having, talking about what it's like growing up as a pastor's kid or growing up with your parents in leadership. And so we've been talking with the Greens, with our niece, Erica, with our middle son, Jonathan, and with our daughter-in-law, Michelle. And so this conversation that we're having is taking place from St. Louis, Missouri, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and Edmonton, Alberta. And this has been quite enlightening listening to this conversation and listening to your perspective of what it's been for you growing up in that environment and in that setting. And so now we're going to take the conversation in a bit of a different direction and now talk about very specifically, at what point do you feel like God really began to tug on your heart? With all that you experienced and some of the conclusions you were coming to about life and what direction you were going to go with your life, at what point do you feel like God really began to tug on your heart? And I'll start this question with Michelle.
I was probably about 8 or 9 years old, I think, when I very clearly heard God tell me that I was going to be in missions or a missionary. And at the time, I applied my very limited view of what a missionary was. I, knew my experience for what my grandfather was, going overseas and ministering to people in a country that I had not grown up in, nothing about. And it's funny because my mom always would tell me, like, hey, God may not mean overseas missions. A missionary can be here at home. And she kept telling me that, and I'd be like, no. And I kept, you think you know it all when you're super young. No. I know what I heard God say. And so as I've grown older, that's one of the things I've realized, like, okay, you really can't apply your understanding to, when you hear the voice of God, like, you can't apply what your understanding of what he's saying meaning. You have to apply what his understanding of what that means. And so, like, right now, my mission field looks like it's going to probably end up being here in my home country. So, like, and that's not what I pictured. I don't have the full picture, but that's not what I pictured. I have to be away from my parents and away from the place I know. But, like I said, it's up to God. I'm not complaining, but so yeah, it's definitely like, but yeah, so probably around 8 or 9, I'd say was.
Wow.
Awesome.
What would you say, Erica? At what point do you really feel like the Lord really began to tug on your heart and you had a better understanding of what he was calling you to?
So I was thinking more about this. I think I've always felt kind of like a soft tug, like since I was like 17. And like, I don't know, I kind of like rejected it. I was like, I don't know. And then recently, it's a mess. But recently, when you guys were here, I guess I think Carol and Johnny, you guys were here a few weeks ago, and me and Johnny got to connect because we're in the same field and things like that, and we were talking about the projects that we want to do together and the things that we just see for our family. And I was like, like, okay, like this is cool. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, probably softly since I was 17, more like a hard tug, jerk, like a few weeks ago.
And John.
Love it.
I would definitely say a lot earlier for me. It was sometime after we moved to Harrisburg, PA, and I had graduated high school. I went to the Harrisburg Area Community College. I did write this stuff. I went to Hack, and and it was when because for me, my parents never pressured me to, be a pastor ever. From the time we were kids, we always wanted to essentially make comic books, make stories, make movies and different things like that. And so I think for very early on, the Lord pulled at us, pulled at me, especially towards animation and video. So I definitely say, like, from the time I was an early kid, like that. But the pull became stronger after I started school at the Art Institute of York, PA. That's when the pull became, I guess that's when it became really crystal clear, like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting when you look at the direction that all of you went with your lives, with the way God was leading you. What do you feel like at any point? What caused you maybe to resist, or even what really caused you to accept God's tug in your heart at that time? You can go with either one. When you were resisting, what was the resistance about? And when you finally gave in, what was that about? I'll start this time. I'll start with Erica.
I think the resistance came kind of, and we touched on this earlier, like just kind of seeing what you guys went through, like the long days, the long nights, like the hurt, like people like kind of playing on your downfall, people like, just not always have the best intentions when like we came like with the best intentions, and just like kind of just seeing everything that you guys went through. It's like, I don't know if I want to be a part of this life. Like, I I don't think I want to do that. And then also, like, I guess the resistance came because I don't think I knew my place in it, because like I don't preach, I don't teach, I don't sing, I don't do music in that way. So I was like, I don't even know like where I would even fit. But now, with the things that like I'm kind of wanting to do now, I'm like, okay, well, like I don't have to preach or teach or do anything like that, but it's just could be something different. So yeah, just the resistance of like just seeing where you guys were, or like seeing what you guys went through, and not really knowing my place or how it fit. That's really what it was.
Okay.
I'll shoot that question with you, Michelle. So what was your resistance at what, and then what caused the acceptance for you?
Me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I mean, for me, it was more acceptance from the get-go, because if there's one thing, and I'm skipping ahead like a little bit, but if there's one thing I think my parents did really well, it's that they really emphasized my relationship with God be my own.
Yeah.
And so even when seeking out my calling and stuff like that, like it was something like, okay, well, what do you feel like God's telling you? And so like I didn't feel so much of resistance, because it was like, well, I trust God, so I'm just gonna do what He says to do. So I mean, I would say the resistance may have more come in changing my definition of what that looks like, because it was like, well, I almost felt, I don't know if hypocritical is the right word, but I almost felt like, okay, now I'm making this like switch to, you always said you were going to be overseas, and now, so you just like gave up and took the easier route, and you're going to stay your butt in North America, like. So there was probably some resistance with, which is my own, like, again, that was something that I had more clung to. That wasn't anyone else put that on me. But yeah, so, and I mean, even with that, I still sometimes do have like in my head like this internal dialogue on that one. So I can't even say I'm totally there, but
Kind of take a moment and help people understand the diversity in Edmonton. We got a chance to see it while we were there.
Yeah.
And many people, especially those of us in America, we have a lot of us are clueless as to what life is like for our northern neighbors, and in particular in Western Canada where you are. So give people a little bit of an idea of the diversity there, and why God could just so easily tell you, stay where you are. You don't have to go travel to reach the world.
Okay, I'll just go with even just my townhouse complex. I have neighbors across the way who, there's a whole like group that are from Nepal. There's a whole group from India. There's several people from the Philippines. There's several people from Canada, and then there are a few. I don't know what country they're from, but they're Black, so I'm not going to make any assumptions about where they may be from. Being, and then our family, I'm Canadian, my husband's American, so
yeah.
So yeah, we've got like quite a diverse group, even just within like our townhouse complex. And like there's even biracial children. There's there's like one of the white families, they have biracial children. The two adults are white, but they have two biracial children. So even like it's very easy to come upon biracial children here in Canada, or at least where in live. Yeah, in Edmonton.
And the very strong Indigenous population is there.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's Edmonton. It's very, very diverse.
So that's why the Lord will easily tell you, no, I want you to stay right where you are, because the world has come to you. And we got a chance. We were there a couple of years ago, and we saw it for ourselves. And just so people know, this is the first time in my life that I've ever walked the streets of a city as a black man and felt nothing from police
Did not feel
or people
in danger.
that no sense of, we're not saying there is no racism there, but it's not the dominant force and thing like what we have here in America. It's just not the same. And so, but I'm saying that to say, yeah, we can see why God will tell you, stay right there. The world is right here where you are. We're coming to a close here. I love the way you guys are answering these questions. So I want to ask this one before we get out of here, though, and that's this. So, what have you learned about yourself as you have grown older and matured? I'll start with Erica.
What have I learned about myself? What have I learned about myself as I've grown older and matured? I think that like God just uses everything for good. Like even like things that I consider in myself to be like a character flaw or like like things to be like bad about myself. Like a very big personality as the green. I have a very big personality. I talk a lot, very opinionated, as all of us greens are. And I always saw that as like a bad thing. Like I always saw that as like too much. Like people wouldn't like that and all that stuff. But clearly God did this on purpose. And even things that have happened in my life that I consider to be bad, like God just kind of uses everything for good. So yeah.
Excellent.
Awesome. Yeah.
So Michelle, how would you respond to that? What have you learned about yourself as you've grown older and matured?
I wrote this one down. I don't know if that cut video. But...
That's okay. Because this one, that's a big one to answer.
That is.
Did we lose Michelle's signal again?
We can hear her.
We can hear you. But I'll go ahead and let John answer while we get your signal back. So, John, what have you learned about yourself as you've gone older and matured?
I mean, I know I've said it to you guys before, but I've learned to be comfortable in my own skin. I've learned to be comfortable in the way that God is showing me to go about my purpose. And that, especially like, I don't have to do, and I'm actually grateful. Like, I don't have to do it the same way that my parents did, that my uncles and aunts did, because especially the way the world is, the way that the world is going, it has to be different when it comes down to it. It has to be different, and I'm comfortable in that, and to be okay with that. And I mean, maybe I'm pretty sure all my family is okay with the way that God is showing me, but it doesn't. I don't have to feel strained as far as like, oh, is my family going to be upset or feel some type of way about the way that God's telling me to do things. Like, I can just go ahead and do whatever God's telling me to do. I mean, I was going to anyway, but I can at least have that comfort that my family is okay with it.
Go ahead, Michelle. So, what have you learned about yourself as you've gone older and matured? Go ahead, Michelle.
And this isn't like something this is like an ongoing learning process. I won't say I've arrived. But it's similar to the answer that Eric and Johnny have given. Everything God has created about me, my personality, and all the characteristics I have, he had created them with a purpose. And even though I'm still learning how to use those different characteristics and those different giftings in godly ways and use them with wisdom, or apply wisdom to them, I guess would be the better way to say that. He doesn't make mistakes, and so I know I've got a purpose for them. And so I've learned how to stop seeing them as flaws and to start to see them as, as just giftings that God's given me. It's still an ongoing process. This isn't like set in stone. Well, I've arrived and I just have it figured out, and I've done this growing. But that I would say that's probably one of the biggest things recently, especially.
I find it interesting at the mix that we have in this conversation, and I'm saying this for those that are watching this now and those that will watch this later, and that is, you guys, the professions that you have moved into, prepared yourself for, are so different from your parents. Erica is, I've watched her college career as a podcaster. She's right, big personality, talks, does great interviews. She's going to definitely be, I feel like, not only on the production side of things, but she's going to be on the talent side. You will see her face, even though she prefers to write and be behind the camera or behind on the other side of the mic. Her personality is too big for her to just only be in production. And John is an animator, extraordinary, influent artist. And for him to be moving in that direction, his mom and dad's we were youth leaders and youth pastors. Now we're community care coaches, and here he is preparing for animation. And then Michelle, most of you don't know, she is a nurse. With this tremendous skill and care for parents, in particular mothers, just real hard to help most types of homes, these types of environments, to prepare you for the world and for the people that he was sending you to.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about how you grew up, and now what you are doing, you can probably see a lot better how God was shaping you for where he was sending you all along. So with that, I want to give you an opportunity to share something with others who may not have made that discovery because they grew up in a pastor's home, or in a church leadership home, and they saw so much negativity and experienced not only what they saw, things that actually happened to them in that environment that has left them hurt, bitter, still struggling,
Even mad at God.
and even mad at God. So, what would you say as we're closing today? And I'll put this question up on the screen so you can look at it. What would you say to other PKs that are out there still struggling with how they grew up in church and ministry? What would you say to them? And I'll just go straight down the line. What would you say to somebody that's still struggling with how they grew up in church?
Who, me? Me first?
Yeah, let's start with you.
Me? Okay. I think the first thing, before you can do anything, you have to acknowledge and validate your experiences. And I think that you have to, it's okay to do that. It's okay to acknowledge that, like, hey, like, my childhood was messed up, or maybe it wasn't messed up, but these couple events, they weren't okay. And it's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to validate that, and don't let yourself, the enemy, or anybody else convince you, like, oh, you're being dramatic, oh, it didn't really happen like that, or oh, it's not that deep. Don't let nobody, not yourself, not the enemy, not anybody else, convince you or invalidate, if that's a word, I don't know, invalidate or unvalidate whatever your experience, So I think before you can do anything else, before you can move on, before you can, like, I guess, work on the struggles, you have to acknowledge your experience and acknowledge that it happened, and let yourself know that it's okay to feel, how you feel.
Yeah. Very good.
John, what would you say to other PKs that are out there still struggling with how they grew up in church?
This is all right. This is going to be. The only action word I can give, and it's a very hard thing to do, is forgive. For me, that was a big part of growing up in as a pastor's kid, forgiving people. Despite, like, people don't know how much a kid remembers from their childhood. I don't think people. I think people really underestimate how much kids remember the things that were said to them, the things that were done to them because of their parents. Um, and and I get it. Like I really get it. As happy as we've been talking here, like there have been some serious hurts um, from all directions, and so it's you do have to forgive. You just have to, because that's what's getting in the way of what you're trying to do. It, you have to forgive. The picture I can give is when you forgive, you're literally, because when you're in unforgiveness, I feel like you're drinking a poison and expecting them to die. Like that's what I feel like that is. And so you have to just forgive. It's essentially for me, because I dwell on the scripture. The scripture, vengeance is mine. So you don't. You're basically getting in front of the hammer when God brings the hammer of vengeance. So you just need to get out the way, because when you're in unforgiveness, you're in the way. You are in the way. That's basically what it is. So for me, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not. I know I can say, yeah, all you have to do is forgive all these people. No, that's not easy to forgive. I can tell you, I'm still in the process of forgiveness, and so it's just so it is not an easy thing to do.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah. So I would say, like, forgive. That's literally the first step, and of course, like what Erica says, like like validate, and even think about the experiences that you did have, like that were good, the fun times you did have, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't all, like, I'm not going to say in every case like it was all doom and gloom, because there might be cases where, like, you literally went through hell every day of your life, and I'm not going to say that that's not your experience, but think of the times that maybe even it was just you and God, or God was pulling on you and you was just like, nah, I want to talk to you today, like that. But please, you have to forgive. You have to forgive.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's it.
Well, Michelle, you get to wrap us up today. So we just
All
say
right.
to those days that are out there.
All right. It's two things for me. So I think the first thing that you have to do is, if you haven't already, you really have to make your relationship with God your own, and realize that God is not the church. The church is full of broken people. The church it's an organization, it's a business, whatever you want to call it, but it's not God. So there will always be brokenness in church. There will always be people that will hurt you in church, but they're not God. And so kind of making that separation and making your relationship with God your own, so that way you're not tying your relationship with God and being like, well, I got in church, so hurt in church, so God must not really care, because the church isn't God.
Right.
And I it's funny because I've been reading the story of Job and Proverbs, Job, yeah, and one of the things that kind of sticks out to me in the story of Job is that Job never gets told why he went through all this suffering, and God actually calls him out and says, like, did you make all this stuff? Like, do you know why fawns, when they're about to give birth, do you move mountains? Do you do all this stuff? Like, because, Job kept going like, God, why would you do all this to me and all this stuff? God never actually told Job why he experienced all this suffering. He just said, I am sovereign, and you just need to accept that. So, it kind of ties in with John. He said, like, letting go of any bitterness you may have as a result of the church, but also realizing the church is not God. So that would be my first thing. My second thing is, if you are somebody who has gone through a lot of traumatic experiences, whether they're, you know, we'll call them like little T traumas versus big T traumas. So, you know, little T traumas can be something as simple as somebody saying something, knowing that it's okay to go get counseling. It's okay to talk to a professional, whether they're saved or not. To talk about your experiences, to talk about how they have affected you, because childhood especially is a time of huge development psychologically, emotionally, and all those things. And so, you know, being okay with going and getting counseling, and not seeing that as a sign of weakness, seeing that as a step to, you know, greater wholeness. And, you know, that's something God has given us in this broken world. So use it. So that would be my 2 things.
That's a perfect wrap up. That's
yes, yes.
And that was the perfect wrap up, because Michelle knows we're all about that.
Yes.
About people getting the professional help that
Yes.
they need. That's part of what we do in our community as care coaches. We don't provide the therapy, but we absolutely encourage the people that we're coaching to get it, to get therapy and to get counseling. So thank you so much for sharing that. All of you, thank you so much for being with us today. This has just been outstanding. And this is just the first time for us as a family attempting to do this. And thank you so much. Those of you that watched it, please give us your feedback, because we really want to get really good and better at this. I want to thank our family.
Yes, thank you.
We love you guys so
love
much.
You, dearly. Awesome.
And those of you that watch us, please continue to check us out. More and more episodes of Conversation and Care are coming your way. God bless you, and have an awesome day.